I remember the exact temperature of the linoleum floor when my legs finally gave out. A sterile, unforgiving chill that seemed to seep directly into my bones. At 66, you expect a certain level of betrayal from your own anatomy, but this was different. It was an absolute, silent shutdown that left me staring at the dust bunnies under the radiator. There I was, a man who survived 3 deployments and decades of hard labor, reduced to a heap by a glitch in my own nervous system. The silence in that small suburban kitchen was heavier than any ruck I ever carried through the bush. I lay there for what felt like hours, listening to the rhythmic ticking of a clock that suddenly sounded like a countdown to obsolescence. It wasn't just the physical pain radiating from my hip that terrified me. It was the realization that I was utterly alone in a house I could barely afford, in a neighborhood that didn't even know my name anymore. When I finally crawled to the phone, my fingers trembling as I reached for that plastic lifeline, I realized the terror was invisible but all-consuming. Losing my independence wasn't going to be a grand explosion or a heroic final stand. It was going to be a slow, bureaucratic erosion. I was a veteran with a fixed income and a failing body, staring down the barrel of a system that views aging men like me as depreciated assets rather than human beings with stories. The hospital visit was a cold wake-up call, not because of the diagnosis, but because of the way the young administrator looked at my insurance paperwork. I saw the calculation in her eyes, the way she categorized me as a low-priority file in a mountain of failing infrastructure. They don't see the soldier or the father. They see the actuarial risk and the dwindling bank account. That night, lying in a bed that smelled of bleach, I felt the first sparks of a quiet, desperate rage. I went home to a mailbox overflowing with final notices and pre-approved predatory loans, a paper trail of a society designed to trap you in your weakest moments. The inflation was eating my pension faster than a moth in a wool coat, and every trip to the grocery store felt like a tactical defeat. I was playing by the rules of a game that had been rigged against me, while I was busy serving the very people who changed those rules. My neighborhood had transformed into a grid of strangers, everyone hunkered down behind smart doorbells and glowing screens, oblivious to the man next door who was drowning in plain sight. We've built these suburban fortresses to keep the world out, but we ended up trapping ourselves in prisons of isolation and debt. I looked at my medals on the mantelpiece and realized they wouldn't pay for the rising property taxes or the looming threat of a managed care facility. The system is a machine that runs on the compliance of the exhausted, and I was reaching my breaking point with every bureaucratic hurdle I encountered. Whether it was the VA losing my files for the 3rd time, or the local zoning board telling me I couldn't grow vegetables in my front yard, the message was clear. They want us dependent, they want us predictable, and they certainly don't want us asking why the social contract we signed was being burned right in front of us. I started looking at my life through a different lens, stripped of the illusions of security that the golden years were supposed to provide. The American dream I was sold was a suburban cage with a 30-year mortgage and a prescription pill bottle as a retirement plan. I felt like an outcast in my own country, a relic of an era where self-reliance meant something more than just choosing which streaming service to subscribe to, while the world outside slowly rotted. Every time I turned on the news, I saw the same faces talking about economic growth, while I watched the price of a gallon of milk climb higher than my blood pressure. They talk about restructuring and efficiency, while real people are choosing between heating their homes or buying their heart medication. It's a systemic failure disguised as a series of unfortunate personal choices, and I refuse to accept the blame for a storm I didn't create but was expected to weather. The invisible terror I felt on that kitchen floor started to turn into a solid, heavy resolve that I hadn't felt since my time in the service. I realized that if I stayed in this suburban trap, I was choosing a slow death of the spirit long before my body finally quit for good. I needed to find a way to reclaim my agency, to find a place where my dignity wasn't tied to a credit score or the whims of a corporate board. I spent nights researching the cracks in the system, looking for the people who had already stepped off the treadmill and found a different way to live. There are thousands of us, invisible veterans of a broken economy, searching for a plot of land or a nomadic path that offers more than just survival. We are the ones the system wants to forget, because we are living proof that their version of civilization is failing those who built it with their sweat. The bureaucracy is designed to make you feel small, to make you feel like your struggle is a personal failing, rather than a predictable outcome of their greed. They use laws and regulations like barbed wire, keeping us hemmed into expensive urban centers where we are nothing more than consumers to be milked. I felt the weight of 66 years of doing the right thing, and realized the right thing was now to rebel against this quiet, suffocating extinction. I remember talking to a fellow veteran at the local diner, a man who looked like he'd been carved out of granite, and seeing the same flickering light in his eyes. He spoke about the zone, the invisible boundaries they set for us, and how he was planning to head north to a place where he could just be. It wasn't about running away. It was about running toward a version of himself that hadn't been compromised by decades of systemic disappointment. The cost of living isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It's the cost of our time, our health, and our very souls being traded for convenience. We've traded our ability to build, to grow, and to repair for a subscription model that owns every aspect of our existence. I looked at my hands and realized they still knew how to work, even if they were a bit slower, and that work was my ticket out of this suburban graveyard. I started selling things, stripping away the clutter that I'd accumulated as a substitute for a meaningful life, and each item sold felt like a chain breaking. The system wants you to believe you need the 3-car garage and the stainless steel appliances to be a person of value. But as I cleared out the boxes of junk, I felt lighter, more agile, and infinitely more dangerous to a status quo that relies on my desire for more stuff. The realization that the government wasn't coming to save me was the most liberating thought I'd had in years, even if it was born from a place of deep betrayal. We spend our lives waiting for a leader or a policy change to fix the foundation, but the foundation is gone, replaced by a temporary patch. I had to be my own cavalry, my own medic, and my own commander in this new war for my personal independence. I began studying old maps, looking for the places where the zoning laws were loose and the taxes were low, the fringe spaces where a man could still breathe. These are the places the system calls flyover country or undeveloped, but to me, they looked like the last bastions of true freedom. I didn't need a mansion. I needed a workshop, a garden, and a clear view of the horizon that wasn't blocked by a neighbour's oversized SUV. My pension, while modest, could go much further if I wasn't paying for the privilege of living in a place that didn't want me there. I calculated the math of autonomy, factoring in solar power, well water, and the barter of skills instead of just chasing the shrinking dollar. It's a different kind of accounting, one that values resilience and community over the empty promises of a traditional retirement account that could vanish in a single market crash. The invisible terror was finally replaced by a visible goal, a tangible path through the woods that led away from the sterile hospital hallways and the final notices. I bought an old, reliable truck and a small plot of land that most people would call a wasteland, but to me, it was a blank canvas of defiance. I wasn't just moving, I was withdrawing my consent from a society that had already withdrawn its support for me. Leaving the suburbs felt like escaping a slow-motion car crash, watching the rows of identical houses disappear in my rearview mirror as I drove toward the unknown. I felt a pang of sadness for the people I left behind, the ones still convinced that if they just work a little harder, the system will eventually take care of them. But I knew better now. The system is a hungry ghost that never stops eating, and I was no longer on the menu. The first few months on the land were brutal, a series of physical challenges that tested every ounce of the military discipline I had left in my aging frame. Building a shelter with your own hands when your back aches and the wind is howling is a special kind of honesty that you can't find in a cubicle. Every nail driven and every log split was a middle finger to the idea that a 66-year-old man is a non-participant in the economy. I learned that autonomy isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about being able to choose who you depend on and what you are willing to trade for your life. I met neighbors who lived 5 miles away, but would show up with a tractor the moment they heard I was struggling with a stump. This wasn't the community of the suburbs. This was a brotherhood of the resilient. People who understood that we are all we have left. The bureaucracy still tries to reach out its long, cold fingers, sending letters about non-conforming structures or unauthorized land use to my remote mountain cabin. But out here, the letters feel like ancient history, artifacts of a crumbling empire trying to enforce rules on a frontier it no longer understands or controls. I reply with the minimum required information and continue to build my life on my own terms, one solar panel and one garden bed at a time. I've learned more about plumbing, electrical work and soil health in the last year than I did in 40 years of being a responsible homeowner in the city. There is a deep, primal satisfaction in knowing exactly where your water comes from and how to fix your own roof when the storm clouds gather. It's a restoration of the soul that happens when you stop being a passenger in your own life and start taking the wheel again. The food I grow tastes like victory. Each tomato and potato a direct blow against the industrialized food system that wants us sick and dependent on their chemicals. I spend my mornings in the dirt, my hands stained with the earth that now sustains me, feeling a connection to the world that I hadn't felt since I was a child. I am no longer an outcast, because I've built my own world where I am the one who defines my value. My body still aches, and the invisible terror of that kitchen floor is a memory I carry as a warning, but I am no longer afraid of the silence. Now, the silence is a companion, a space where I can hear my own thoughts instead of the constant roar of a society that is shouting at me to buy more. I am a veteran of the system, and I have finally found the peace that the wars and the work never quite provided. I look at the young people today, drowning in student debt and working 3 jobs just to afford a room in a city that hates them, and my heart breaks for them. They are being told that this is the only way, that the system is inevitable, and their struggle is just a natural part of the modern world. I want to tell them that there is a back door, a way to step out of the light and into the productive shadows of autonomy. We are told that resilience is just about bouncing back to the way things were, but true resilience is about building something that can't be broken by the same forces again. It's not about surviving the system, it's about outliving it and creating something more human in the ruins of their bureaucracy and their greed. We have the skills, we have the history, and most importantly, we have the absolute necessity of finding a better way to exist. The outcasts are the ones who will inherit the earth when the fragile structures of the urban centers finally buckle under the weight of their own unsustainable complexity. We are the quiet army of the self-reliant, the ones who know how to build a fire, fix a motor, and look a neighbor in the eye with genuine respect. We don't need their permission to be free, and we don't need their validation to know that our lives have profound meaning and dignity. This video diary is my manifesto, a message in a bottle for anyone else who feels like they are drowning in the invisible terror of a system that no longer sees them. Don't wait for the floor to give out beneath you before you decide to change your direction and reclaim the agency that is your birthright as a human being. The transition is hard, the work is long, and the path is often lonely, but the destination is your own life, fully owned. I sit on my porch now, watching the sun set over a valley that doesn't owe anyone a dime, and I feel a sense of wealth that my younger self could never have understood. I have my health, such as it is, my land, my skills, and a community of people who would bleed for me just as I would for them. This is the new American dream, a manifesto of resilience that is written in sweat and wood and the refusal to be discarded. We are not the invisible elderly or the depreciated veterans. We are the pioneers of a new era of autonomy and the guardians of the skills that the modern world has forgotten. Every time one of us steps off the grid, every time one of us builds a life outside their zones, we are proving that the human spirit is stronger than any bureaucracy. The system is a choice, not a destiny, and I have made my choice to live as a free man. The lessons I've learned in this transition are simple. Trust your hands, respect the land, find your people, and never, ever let them convince you that you are alone. The invisible terror only has power when you are isolated and dependent, but it vanishes the moment you take that first step toward your own self-reliance. It's a hard road, but it's a road that leads home, to a place where you are the master of your own soul. I am Arthur. I am 66 years old, and I am more alive today than I was 30 years ago, when I was just another cog in their massive, uncaring machine. I have survived the wars, the work, and the system, and I am here to tell you that there is hope on the other side of your own fear. We are the survivors, and our journey is just beginning as we build the foundations of a more resilient and meaningful world together. The struggle is real, and the failures of the system are not your fault, but the responsibility to find a way out is entirely yours to carry and to conquer. Stop looking for a savior in a suit or a solution in a ballot box. The only savior you need is staring back at you from the mirror every single morning. Take back your time, take back your health, and take back the dignity that they tried to trade for a little bit of convenience. My body might fail me again one day, but when it does, it will be on my own land, under a roof I built, surrounded by a community that I chose. That is the ultimate victory, the final manifesto of a man who refused to be just another number in their failing actuarial tables and their cold, heartless databases. We are the architects of our own resilience, and we are building a world that is finally worthy of the people who live in it. The calls I get now aren't from debt collectors. They are from friends asking for advice on how to set up their own solar arrays, or how to heal their tired, overworked soil. We are sharing the blueprints for a better life, passing the torch of knowledge from one outcast to another, in a network of quiet, powerful resistance against the status quo. This is how we win, not with a shout, but with the steady, unstoppable work of building a new way. Don't let the weight of the past or the uncertainty of the future paralyze you into staying in a situation that is slowly killing your spirit and your sense of self. The invisible terror is just a shadow cast by a system that is terrified of your potential and your refusal to stay in the box they built for you. Break the glass, step outside, and start the hard, beautiful work of becoming the survivor you were always meant to be in this life. I look at the horizon, and I see a future that is bright with the fires of 1,000 small homesteads and 1,000 nomadic paths crossing in a web of true independence. We are the ones we've been waiting for, and we are the answer to the systemic failures that have left so many of our brothers and sisters in the dark. The manifesto of resilience is written every day by those who have the courage to walk away and start over. To the veteran, to the retiree, to the young worker, and to the outcast. Your life is a manifesto of hope, and your struggle is the fuel for a new kind of fire. Let the anger you feel toward the system be the engine that drives you toward the autonomy and the dignity that you deserve as a human being. We are the survivors of the old world, and we are the builders of the new one, and we are not going anywhere. Every morning when I wake up, I thank the cold floor for being the catalyst that pushed me toward the sun and toward the life I was meant to live. I am no longer afraid of being invisible, because I have seen the strength of my own reflection in the eyes of my community and the work of my hands. The manifesto is complete, the path is clear, and the only thing left to do is to keep moving forward with purpose. This video diary is a testament to the power of the human spirit to rise above the systemic failures of a society that has lost its way and its heart. It's a call to action for everyone who feels the weight of the invisible terror and knows deep down that there must be a better way to live. The work is hard, the journey is long, but the destination is a life of true meaning, agency, and unbreakable, lasting resilience. Let the world know that we are here, that we are strong, and that we are no longer willing to sacrifice our dignity for their empty promises and their broken contracts. We are the survivors, we are the resilient, and we are the ones who will define the future by the strength of our character and the work of our hands. Our manifesto is one of hope, hard work, and the absolute power of a community that refuses to give up. As the light fades on another day of hard, honest work, I feel a peace that passes all understanding, a sense of belonging that no suburban house could ever provide. I am Arthur, a survivor of the system, a builder of the new world, and a man who has finally found his true purpose in the struggle for autonomy. The journey is never truly over, but the path is mine to walk, and I walk it with my head held high.